A 35-year-old female student suddenly transferred into this high school class. After introducing herself, she declared she would make 100 friends at school. The students below couldn't help but laugh, calling this old woman crazy. Not only was this the worst school, but she was also placed in the worst class. Students here had no rights whatsoever. Even the homeroom teacher had been forced out countless times. The campus was filled with malice, as the system here was divided into strict hierarchies. The first-tier students were the school bullies. They had access to unused rooms for rest, could cause chaos in hallways and classrooms, and even interrupt teachers mid-lecture. Within the school, they held supreme authority. Everyone had to cater to their whims. When witnessing bullying, teachers seeking to intervene had to seek permission from the top-tier bullies. Second-tier students enjoyed none of these privileges and couldn't criticize the top-tier bullies. They possessed only the basic rights of ordinary high schoolers. But the most tragic were the third-tier students. Not only are they barred from lingering in classrooms or hallways during breaks, they lack the right to speak with students from the first or second tiers. Worse still, their names remain unremembered. They possess no human rights whatsoever. Some students have sunk into depression and refuse to attend school, while others face isolation within a web of hypocritical relationships. Yet the root of this suffering lies not solely with the bullies themselves. The indulgence and indifference of teachers, students, and parents serve as indirect accomplices. This is the infamous Kaikwan High School. Yet the students had no idea that the mysterious 35-year-old transfer student before them would change everything. Just hours earlier, the school was holding its opening ceremony. She arrived in a sports car, exuding regal confidence as she entered the ceremony hall. Students assumed she was a new teacher. Teachers thought she was a parent. As everyone looked on in confusion, the principal stepped forward to explain she was a transfer student. A collective gasp rippled through the hall. Not just the students, but even the teachers were intrigued. Why would a 35-year-old woman repeat high school? Even the principal was in the dark. Besides her age, all he knew was that this was an order from higher-ups, and this woman had even dropped out midway through before. The teachers immediately began whispering among themselves. They quickly labeled her a problem student. The principal then assigned her to the newly arrived teacher, Mr. Koizumi. The woman then entered the classroom to introduce herself. The students below couldn't help but snicker. They all thought she was a proper old hag, but Chie remained calm and unmoved. Sure enough, during class, the classroom descended into chaos. The teacher lectured from the front, too afraid to intervene. Fortunately, Chie's academic performance was excellent. Facing her classmates' harassment, she handled it with ease. However, one day after class, Shia unexpectedly stumbled upon several school bullies harassing a classmate. They were coercing students into buying fake tickets to extort protection money. Shia saw this and decisively stepped in to stop them. In her view, this behavior was no different from fraud, so she resolutely reported the incident to the police for her classmate. Soon, police cars arrived at the school, but when the school administration learned of this, instead of punishing these extortionist bullies, but instead berated Shia, accusing her of tarnishing the school's reputation. It turned out that just hours earlier, the Education Bureau's director had arrived for an unannounced inspection. The administrators, terrified of exposing the school's shortcomings, had been groveling before the director. Because Chia had called the police, the director happened to witness their arrival. This enraged the principal, who nearly expelled Chia on the spot, and warned her never to meddle in others' affairs again. Chia could only bow her head in resignation. At lunchtime, as she headed back to the classroom, she unexpectedly bumped into a female classmate. The girl looked anxious, as if avoiding something. Chia then returned to the classroom. The school bully was bullying classmates as usual. Seeing students gathered in small groups eating lunch together, Chia tried to join them, but everyone immediately moved away. They didn't want Chia to join. Undeterred, Chia tried again to sit down, but the female bully sneered and told her to get lost. In the end, Chia could only eat alone, sitting by herself. The bully's goal was to prevent her from fitting in, forcing her into isolation and causing her to panic about relationships. Chia thought she was being isolated because she was new, but Rico, whom she met in the hallway, shared the same fate. When she reached the restroom, she discovered Rico hiding there to eat. Chia hurriedly asked why Rico was eating in the bathroom. Rico's eyes widened in terror upon seeing her, as if she wanted to speak but couldn't. This scene was overheard by two other classmates. When Rico returned to the classroom, the bullies swarmed her, mocking her relentlessly. They belittled her for eating in the bathroom, joking how nice it was to have a bathroom as her home without paying rent. Yet Rico ate alone in the bathroom precisely because she was isolated. The bullies still chattered on, mockingly calling her the toilet queen. Unable to bear these humiliating words, Rico fled the classroom in sorrow. After school, Chia sought out the teacher to ask what toilet meals meant. The teacher explained, "It means having no one to eat with. That's why she hides in the bathroom to eat alone." The reason for this was to avoid being seen by others as isolated, so she hid in the bathroom. Before leaving, the teacher reminded Chia never to mention this matter, as it would hurt Rico's self-esteem. Such pressure might push her to refuse going to school, but the teacher's concern came too late. The students had already learned about it during the day. Sure enough, Rico didn't come to school the next day. Early in the morning, the teacher received a call from Rico's parents saying she was unwell and would be absent. Fearing something might be wrong, the two rushed straight to Rico's house after school, but Rico kept the door locked tight, refusing to come out. They patiently tried to convince her to return to school, yet Rico wouldn't listen to a word. Just as they mentioned the bathroom lunch, Rico's parents happened to overhear. They were puzzled. Their daughter had always told them she was happy at school and had many good friends. Seeing this, Rico opened the door to reassure her parents, and promised she'd attend school on time the next day. Chia, however, noticed the marks on Rico's wrists, clear signs of self-harm. Angered by the discovery, she stormed out. It turned out Rico had once excelled academically but failed her entrance exams, forcing her to attend this subpar school. To spare her parents' worry, she'd consistently lied about her well-being at school. In reality, she endured constant isolation and bullying from the school bullies. She kept this hidden precisely to spare her parents' worry, knowing their constant arguments stemmed from her issues. But this time, upon learning their daughter suffered at school, their first reaction wasn't to comfort her. Instead, they launched into a relentless argument and blame game, even threatening divorce. Rico, listening from her room, heard it all. What she dreaded most was her parents fighting. She felt it was all her fault. If only she had done well on her entrance exams, she wouldn't have ended up in this isolating school environment. For a moment, she wished she could vanish from this world. Fortunately, reason ultimately overcame her impulse. The next day, Rico went to school pretending to be calm as usual, but the bullies continued to mock her in secret. At lunchtime, Rico had no choice but to eat in the bathroom as she always did. This time, however, Chia was sitting next door. She wanted to understand Rico's pain by experiencing it firsthand. After Chia's earnest persuasion, Rico felt the warmth of friendship for the first time. It had been so long since she'd last smiled. But as the two entered the classroom, Rico was once again stunned by the scene before her. The bullies had pranked her seat. Not only had they placed a toilet seat on it, but they were collectively mocking her. Rico's newly calmed heart was once again set ablaze by this. She blurted out the real reason she'd gone to the restroom for lunch. And so, heartbroken and wronged, she left the classroom once more. Witnessing all this, Chia couldn't help but recall her own past. It seemed she'd experienced something similar before. Without hesitation, she rushed after Rico. At that moment, Rico was hiding in the restroom, contemplating the unthinkable. Chia, wielding a fire extinguisher, pounded relentlessly on the door. The deafening noise instantly drew a crowd of classmates. Fortunately, Chia stopped her just in time, averting tragedy. Yet Rico stubbornly insisted she was doing it to be trendy, telling Chia to mind her own business and respect others' freedom. But Chia knew all too well that Rico had always bottled up her pain. Yet at this moment, Rico was utterly disheartened. Facing Chia's attempts to comfort her, she even pushed her away angrily. Then she blamed herself for failing her entrance exams and her parents' arguments and divorce. Seeing she couldn't persuade her, Chia brought her to her parents. She made her pour out all her feelings in front of them. Seeing their daughter in this state, her parents rushed over in shock to comfort her. At that moment, Rico finally voiced her true feelings. "It's all my fault. It's because I'm useless that you two fight, right? But you never blame me, so I can only blame myself." Her father snatched the object from her and scolded her, telling her never to do such foolish things again. Her mother stood by, crying and apologizing. It turned out her parents had known about their daughter's struggles all along. They had mistakenly believed all this was caused by their own arguments. They believed divorce would solve everything. It was all a misunderstanding. The root of the misunderstanding was a lack of communication between parent and child. After both shared their thoughts, the father finally embraced her. Their misunderstanding was finally resolved. Chia, standing nearby, teared up and quietly left. The next day at lunchtime, Riko brought her lunch to the rooftop, found Chie, and thanked her, and proposed becoming her first friend. From that day on, Riko finally emerged from her shadow, her face lighting up with a happy smile. Though Riko's crisis had passed, an even worse incident unfolded at school the following day. Due to her recent outstanding performance, Shia had been promoted to class monitor, but while organizing the suggestion box after school, she unexpectedly discovered a peculiar note. It boldly declared 3 words, "Save me." At first, the teacher dismissed it as a prank and casually handed it to Chia to handle, telling her to find out which student was being bullied. But Chia's actions stunned him. Unexpectedly, she directly confronted every student in the class. Seeing this, the teacher quickly pulled her aside. He thought this method was foolish. Today's students aren't like those of the past. You can't tell at a glance who's being bullied. Besides, the victim might be hiding it. How could they easily admit they're being bullied? Before leaving, the teacher warned her not to pry into students' affairs anymore. Yet the next morning, the school was in an uproar. It turned out Chia had written letters directly to every student's parent. Ultimately, the parents came knocking too. The school administration had no choice but to bow their heads in apology. Around this time, Chia noticed a classmate named Keiko constantly being bossed around by others. Not only did she run errands for the female bullies, but she even willingly submitted to their extortion. Chia suspected Keiko was the one who wrote the letters, but Keiko claimed she was doing it willingly and told Chia to mind her own business. That evening after school, Keiko was walking home when she looked at the steps ahead. She deliberately stepped into the void. She tumbled down the stairs. Chia happened to pass by and witnessed the fall. She immediately called an ambulance and rushed Keiko to the hospital. It was then she noticed the notebook in Keiko's backpack. The handwriting inside matched the desperate plea from the other day perfectly. This confirmed her suspicions. Fortunately, Keiko only suffered minor scrapes. Chia returned the notebook and asked Keiko again if she was being bullied, but Keiko denied it once more. Seeing this, Chia didn't press further. Just then, the teacher arrived with Keiko's friends. Seeing Keiko smiling and chatting with them, they left satisfied. The next day at lunch, Riko told Chia she and Keiko had known each other for a long time, but Keiko hadn't always been like this. Or rather, she was forcing herself to fit into this clique. Chia suddenly understood. Riko then offered to help investigate. After school, she secretly followed the group. When the school bullies sent Keiko off to buy drinks, Riko overheard them planning to celebrate Keiko's release from the hospital. But lacking funds, they ordered Keiko to steal someone's wallet. Chia was utterly shocked upon learning this. Fortunately, just as Keiko was about to succeed, Chia arrived in time to stop her. Keiko had intended to call the owner herself to return the wallet. Unexpectedly, the owner mistook her for a thief and detained her. Meanwhile, Keiko, having failed in her theft, faced accusations from the school bullies upon returning. Despite her constant apologies, the bullies refused to forgive her. They even made more outrageous demands. Shortly after, Keiko was also arrested and taken to the police station. The reason? Stealing a man's shirt. Chia was utterly shocked upon learning everything. Just then, Keiko's father arrived, but the moment he entered the room, he berated his daughter without a shred of concern for her dignity. He was only worried about losing face if the incident became public. It turned out Keiko's father was a teacher. To quell the scandal of failing to raise his daughter properly, the next day he brought Keiko to apologize to the entire class. Chia couldn't bear to see her continue like this, so she pulled out the plea note and confronted Keiko. "Did you write this?" Yet Keiko still flatly denied it. Chia produced the evidence. The fingerprints on Keiko's diary perfectly matched those on the note. The school bullies started jeering, accusing her of fabrication and telling her to stop making a fool of herself. To convince everyone, Chia then pulled out the surveillance footage. The video showed Keiko stealing right in front of the sales clerk, as if she deliberately set herself up to be caught. "You did this to end your own suffering, didn't you?" Truthfully, Keiko had been trying to fit in by constantly pleasing others. Though she always forced a smile and said she was fine, deep down she desperately longed for someone to care about her too. By this point, Keiko was already in tears. Her father, seeing his daughter being bullied, loudly demanded to know who was responsible, yet not a single student admitted to it. Unexpectedly, Chia then told him, "You're one of the bullies tormenting Keiko, because you never listened to your daughter's thoughts, nor cared about her feelings. All you ever cared about was your own reputation and face." Faced with Chia's accusation, Keiko's father angrily denied it. Chia retorted furiously, It's precisely this attitude of yours that pushed Keiko to this point. Even if students are bullied at school nowadays, they can't tell anyone, not even friends, teachers, or parents, because if it's discovered, not only will the problem not be solved, it will only get worse, so those being bullied lie to themselves, pretending they aren't being bullied. At that moment, Keiko finally gathered her courage. She loudly admitted the truth that she was being bullied at school, but none of the past mattered anymore because now she had a better friend. The next day when she came to school, she no longer wore heavy makeup. She stopped forcing smiles to please others or trying to fit into someone else's circle. She began radiating confidence, her face glowing with a happy smile, though she still hadn't kicked her habit of running errands. This experience significantly improved her relationship with her father. The three became inseparable friends who shared everything. But then Keiko revealed a shocking secret. It turned out there was another assailant lurking behind her on the staircase that night, while she had indeed considered ending it all. The moment she stepped forward, a hand pushed her from behind. Unfortunately, Keiko didn't know who that person was either. On their way home that evening, they unexpectedly encountered classmates Shota and Daiki. The two were performing on the street, playing guitar, and had even formed a band together. Seeing their unbreakable bond filled Chie and the others with envy. But by the next morning, their friendship had already begun to crack, under the gaze of the entire class. Shota personally cut off Daiki's hair with scissors. This delighted the school bullies watching nearby. Fortunately, Chie quickly pressed the fire alarm. Instantly, the entire classroom drew the attention of the principal and teachers. After some inquiries, everyone finally understood. The reason behind their violent clash was nothing more than a ranking. The bullies had secretly created an underground website where the top-tier students could act with impunity, while the second-tier students had to behave themselves. The worst off were the third-tier students, who not only endured constant bullying but were even denied the right to speak. Shota and Daiki were among the most powerless third-tier students. After last night's performance, Daiki suddenly proposed disbanding the band. He wanted to pivot and become a model. Shota assumed Daiki was abandoning him to climb into the school's top tier. He then dropped a bombshell, declaring he'd long considered disbanding too, not only because Daiki's guitar skills were terrible, but also because he'd already found replacement members. But the next day, as soon as Daiki entered the classroom, the school bullies mocked him, saying his goofy looks were totally unsuitable for modeling. Daiki felt this was Shota teaming up with them to get back at him. Chie suggested he clear up all the misunderstandings, but Daiki insisted that since things had come to this, he'd just endure it a little longer. Maybe once they got tired of messing with him, it would blow over. Yet the very next day, when Daiki arrived in class, Shota started trouble again. Then Shota actually threw chalk dust right into Daiki's face. But just then, the school bullies couldn't stand it anymore. To them, Shota's arrogance was stealing their spotlight. When Shota pretended to trip and then stuck a note on Daiki's back, they volunteered to play the righteous vigilantes, rallying to defend Daiki. Shota was stunned to see the bullies turn against him. Later, egged on by the bullies, Daiki sought revenge on Shota. Witnessing this, Chie stepped forward and demanded, "Is bullying people fun?" Daiki, however, made up an excuse and left the classroom. Afterward, Keiko told Chie that apparently, the two had often fought back in their freshman year, but after each fight, they would pour out their true feelings to each other. They eventually became best friends who shared everything. Watching their relationship deteriorate, Keiko felt deeply sorry for them and pleaded with Chie to find a solution, but Chie admitted she was powerless. That night, she went to a bar alone, drowning her sorrows in alcohol. Just then, her former teacher unexpectedly appeared. After hearing the story, the teacher remarked, "You must be in so much pain." It turned out Chie had experienced something similar herself. Back then, she too had been betrayed by a friend, and they'd lost contact ever since. The teacher explained that misunderstandings easily arise when both parties are trying to protect each other's feelings, and once misunderstandings occur, repairing the broken relationship becomes even harder. The teacher's words made Chie realize something. If she wanted them to reconcile, both sides needed to voice their true feelings. So the next day, she handed Shota a challenge note, claiming it was from Daiki. Shota flew into a rage and stormed out immediately. She then turned and gave Daiki an identical note. Seeing this, Daiki also hurriedly accepted the challenge and went to the school warehouse. The two confronted each other, demanding to know what the other meant. But before they could finish speaking, they started fighting. Chie took the opportunity to enter the warehouse herself. She urged them to use this chance to clear up everything. At that moment, Daiki finally voiced his true feelings. It turned out he wanted to disband the band because he hated how poorly he played guitar. And Shota hadn't intentionally revealed Daiki's secret to the school bully. It was because the bully's older brother was a model, and Shota hoped he could introduce Daiki to him. It turned out both were trying to help each other. Shia then told them there's nothing more painful than being betrayed by someone you trust. What you need to understand now isn't the messy atmosphere in class, but each other's hearts. With that, the misunderstanding between them was finally cleared up. They no longer cared about the school rankings. The next day, when the school bully threatened them again with the ranking list, it couldn't shake their friendship at all. But seeing this new transfer student constantly stealing the spotlight only enraged the school bullies even more. To teach that old woman a lesson, the bullies found Mr. Kazuhiro after school and handed him a note. The next day during exams, the bullies kept signaling to Kazuhiro-sensei, who was proctoring. When Kazuhiro passed Chia's desk, he bent down and pretended to pull out a note. Then he accused Chie of cheating. Fortunately, classmates saw Kazuhiro deliberately setting her up. Everyone was baffled why the usually gentle Kazuhiro-sensei now obeyed the bully's every command. Daiki recalled the teacher he first knew. Back then, Daiki's grades were poor, but Kazuhiro's enthusiasm reignited his passion for learning. Kazuhiro would even exchange diaries with students to connect with them. Yet one incident completely transformed him. During a sophomore year class, the bullies not only ignored the lecture but openly disrupted the lesson. Kazuhiro tried to stop them, only to be met with even more vicious insults and taunts. Principal Wu happened to walk by and immediately criticized Kazuhiro. Watching the students laugh, Kazuhiro finally lost control and punched the glass. This incident became Kazuhiro's record. He completely surrendered to the top-tier bullies. Upon learning this, the class unanimously decided to help Mr. Kazuhiro reclaim his former self. As they left, Daiki voiced his true feelings. Hearing his students' encouragement, Kazuhiro broke down in tears. Simultaneously, he resolved to resist to the end. The next day in class, the bullies continued their disruptive behavior, playing games and cards at the back. Kazuhiro no longer tolerated it. He stepped forward to stop them, ordering these disruptors to stand outside as punishment. But unexpectedly, this incident once again caught the attention of Principal Wu. Without investigating the cause, Principal Wu immediately reprimanded him. It turned out that after being punished and sent out of the classroom, the bullies had gone straight to Principal Wu to complain. They feigned innocence, claiming they were attending class properly only to be unfairly expelled. Clearly, the teacher was deliberately bullying them. The bullies even threatened, "If the school doesn't handle this properly, we'll report it to the Education Bureau." Principal Wu naturally didn't want the bullies to escalate the situation. She promptly pinned all the blame on Kazuhiro. The other teachers didn't hesitate to add their own harsh words. Principal Wu even pressured him to resign voluntarily. Truthfully, this school's notorious reputation stemmed not only from the students but also from teachers bullying each other. Kazuhiro was the one constantly being oppressed, day in and day out. The administration dumped impossible workloads on him alone. His colleagues routinely mocked him with sarcastic remarks. And if he couldn't get along with the top-tier bullies? As a teacher, that meant his career was over. Shia and Daiki were deeply concerned for teacher Kazuhiro, so they drove behind him, following his route. Sure enough, disaster struck. As Kazuhiro boarded the bus, bags in hand, several girls accused him of groping them. After getting off, they clutched his arm, refusing to let go. The incident soon drew police attention. Under interrogation, Kazuhiro denied everything, but the girls stubbornly insisted he had molested them on the bus. Unexpectedly, Principal Wu suddenly bowed her head and confessed to the police on his behalf. Kazuhiro couldn't accept this damage to his reputation. He couldn't understand why Principal Wu would do such a thing. But Principal Wu, looking deeply concerned, told him that if this incident escalated, it would become a scandal for the school, so she preferred to suppress the matter rather than uncover the truth. The next day, Kazuhiro was forced to apologize to everyone in the staff room upon arriving for work. Later, when he entered the classroom, he found the blackboard plastered with news articles about his alleged misconduct. These had been posted by the school bullies below. From their seats, they hurled insult after insult at teacher Kazuhiro standing at the front. Kazuhiro felt a complex mix of emotions. Seeing this, Principal Wu not only failed to help him but also pressured him to resign. In that moment, Kazuhiro couldn't hold back and wanted to punch the glass again. But luckily Daiki stopped him. he cried out, demanding to know where the old Kazuhiro had gone. Daiki felt terribly guilty, believing his words had hurt Kazuhiro. Chie also had nightmares because of this incident, recalling past events. That night, the teacher called to tell her, "Every teacher has a heart that loves their students. There must be some reason behind this." Clearly, Kazuhiro had been framed. Yet the next day, the school leadership collectively concluded that Kazuhiro's despair stemmed from the discovery of his misconduct. Principal Wu, particularly cunning, publicly denounced Kazuhiro's misconduct before the media at a subsequent press conference. Just then, Chie abruptly entered with Daiki. Interrupting them, she declared the principal's words were lies, outright denying Kazuhiro's alleged crimes and presenting evidence. It turned out Kazuhiro had been carrying 3 bags in both hands that day, with both hands occupied. He simply couldn't have committed any misconduct. Yet Principal Wu insisted Kazuhiro must have held 3 bags in one hand while using the other for wrongdoing. Chie had anticipated this and immediately had Daiki demonstrate, even straining with all his might. Daiki couldn't lift 3 bags with one hand. Kazuhiro was clearly being framed, but Principal Wu shifted her tactics upon seeing this. She turned and blamed the students entirely, claiming they were the reason teacher Kazuhiro jumped off the building. She claimed Kazuhiro had endured prolonged bullying from the students. Chie was stunned by this nonsense and accused her of being utterly unfit to be a teacher. When things turned against her, she shifted blame onto the students, pretending it had nothing to do with her. Such behavior violated the very principle that teachers should protect their students. Later, Chie revealed the truth to the media. The real reason Kazuhiro couldn't cope wasn't just the students, it was the teachers. Chie then produced a diary from Kazuhiro's bag, revealing his innermost thoughts. It turned out teacher Kazuhiro never forgot his duty as an educator. From the very first day of school, he resolved to teach his students well. Yet his colleagues constantly dumped their own responsibilities onto him, leaving him no time to prepare lessons. Even though the school bullies showed no interest in learning, he still blamed himself. His colleagues in the staff room only intensified their harassment. Fortunately, a group of students who genuinely liked him provided immense motivation. Yet the school began pressuring him to resign, branding him a troublemaker without investigating the truth. Principal Wu took the blame for him, making him a target of everyone's resentment. But for the sake of the students who cared for him, he couldn't resign because resigning would mean defeat. In the end, teacher Kazuhiro wrote, "But I've lost the confidence to continue. What should I do?" Hearing this, the students were instantly moved to tears. It turned out teacher Kazuhiro never once blamed them, even at the very end. And this was the evidence of bullying among teachers. Seeing this, Principal Wu tried to argue back, but Chie quickly interrupted her, telling her she should lead by example. You must know that in his diary, teacher Kazuhiro not only refrained from blaming the students, but wrote that caring for students is a teacher's responsibility. In the end, Principal Wu hung her head in shame. The students, too, were moved to tears by teacher Kazuhiro. Meanwhile, the school bully, seeing his scheme fail, began to seethe with rage. Afterward, the students instinctively visited teacher Kazuhiro. Fortunately, after emergency treatment, his life was no longer in danger. Everyone eagerly hoped for his swift recovery, for they all still longed to attend his classes. Teacher Kazuhiro responded with strength, "I will." Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but smile with relief. As days passed, the annual school festival drew near. However, due to the school's recent string of scandals, the Minister of Education was highly likely to dismiss the incompetent principal. To keep his job, the principal had to make a strong impression at this festival. To that end, he demanded every homeroom teacher prepare a performance. Each class was allocated a 50,000 yen subsidy for their activities. Upon returning to the classroom, the teacher decided to select an event coordinator. Chie raised her hand to volunteer, but the teacher realized that since the event required everyone's participation, the coordinator must be someone capable of mobilizing the entire class. Naturally, the support of the top students was essential. Just as the situation grew awkward, a girl named Tomomi stepped forward and volunteered. Tomomi happened to be one of the school's top students. With Tomomi's backing, the second and third tiers would naturally follow her lead. Just as the teacher was secretly pleased, a fight broke out in the classroom. The teacher rushed back in, terrified. Tomomi and Chie were arguing fiercely. Tomomi sneered at Chie. Furious, she walked over to the art supplies, grabbed an X-Acto knife, and declared she no longer wanted to be the leader. She then approached the window, raised the craft knife, and began stabbing at her uniform in a fit of rage. After venting her frustration, she left the classroom in a sulk. The entire room fell into an awkward silence. Only later did the teacher understand the truth. While everyone else had been preparing stickers for the event, the first-tier school bullies had been slacking off. Chie couldn't stand their carefree attitude and confronted them. But Tomomi, representing the first tier, wouldn't tolerate being questioned so easily. And so the situation had escalated to this point. But it didn't end there. The other members of Class 1 also left the classroom. Worse still, the 50,000 yen class fund was still in Tomomi's possession. Therefore, it was imperative to find Tomomi immediately. However, when the teacher located Tomomi that evening, not only did she refuse to return, but she had also spent the entire 50,000 yen. The next day, the students of Class 1 staged a collective strike. With matters having reached this point, the teacher had no choice but to consider a program that didn't require spending the funds. Daiki and Shota proposed a duet performance by the two of them. But how could just the two of them manage? Ultimately, everyone unanimously decided to switch the program to a class chorus. A girl named Saki volunteered to take charge as the coordinator. With Class 1 gone, everyone became so united. The teacher felt perhaps this chorus could proceed smoothly. But could things really go as he wished? Sure enough, problems arose as soon as Saki took charge. Lacking leadership skills, she couldn't keep the students in line. The performance planning stalled. After school, Shia met her former teacher. The teacher seemed to sense her worries and reminded her that the cultural festival was an opportunity for the whole class to participate together. Hearing this, Shia instantly lost her smile. Looking at the school uniform, now torn and tattered from the stabbing, she couldn't help but sigh. The next day, everyone gathered in the music room for rehearsal. Saki was in charge of playing the piano while the others handled the vocals. But right from the start, disagreements arose, because Saki's piano playing kept making mistakes. The others merely offered some constructive feedback, but she flew into a rage. After that, everyone dared not speak up. Due to her mistakes, everyone had to repeat the entire piece over and over. Later, Daiki and Shota approached the teacher, pleading to bring Tomomi back. Last year's chorus had been accompanied by Tomomi. Her rhythm was not only meticulously controlled, but everyone had worked together seamlessly. However, Riko and Keiko strongly disagreed. After all, they were finally able to prepare happily with one less member. Just as everyone was arguing fiercely, the teacher received an unbelievable piece of news. That evening, he followed the address and entered a nightclub. To his shock, Tomomi was working there as a hostess. She had even become the club's top performer. The teacher couldn't understand why she'd chosen such a profession. Tomomi explained she desperately needed money. It turned out she'd become hooked on visiting host clubs. Hosts provided high-quality companionship services. There, she could pour out her frustrations and vent her inner turmoil. Unable to afford the host clubs anymore, she'd resorted to working as a hostess to earn money. The teacher, unable to pay for the expensive drinks, was eventually kicked out by Tomomi's staff. With Tomomi absent, the choir's progress deteriorated. After rehearsing all afternoon, mistakes persisted. Some students couldn't endure it and left the classroom. Finally, Saki also walked out in frustration. This chaotic scene was witnessed head-on by the principal, who arrived. To prevent embarrassment at the cultural festival, the principal bluntly threatened to cancel their class's performance. Seeing this, the others desperately hoped Chie could bring Tomomi back, but Keiko and Riko intervened again, even threatening to cut ties with Chie if she dared approach Tomomi. After all, both had endured bullying from the top-tier students together. Just as Chie wrestled with her dilemma, Tomomi unexpectedly approached her to borrow money. It turned out she'd visited a host club again and was broke. Chie agreed to lend her money on one condition: that she return to the group. Chie then brought up the class choir issue. At that moment, Tomomi finally opened up. She actually hated the first string label too, but every time there was an event, only the first stringers could step up and solve problems. The second and third stringers would complain, but when it mattered, not a single one would volunteer. Everyone kept their heads down, desperate not to be chosen as the leader. That's why Tomomi had decided to step forward back then. After talking it out, the misunderstanding between them dissolved. Tomomi also promised to come to school the next day, but the following morning, Chie waited on the playground for a long time without Tomomi showing up. When Riko and Keiko learned Chie had gone looking for Tomomi, Their faces showed utter disappointment in her. Their friendship shattered because of this. What worried Chia most was why Tomomi hadn't appeared after so long. Everyone else was also hoping Tomomi would return. That afternoon, Saki even approached Chia herself, hoping she could persuade Tomomi to come back. She admitted she hadn't led the group well, but Chia felt the same way. Just as she walked back to the classroom, she unexpectedly discovered a notebook Tomomi had left inside her uniform. Inside were detailed descriptions of each classmate's characteristics and clear divisions of labor. Tomomi had meticulously annotated everything. Chia finally realized she had misunderstood her. She had mistakenly thought Tomomi had it easy. Meanwhile, Tomomi was out wandering when she was suddenly kidnapped by several thugs. Her captors were the very men from the host club. Just as they were about to squeeze every last drop of value from her, the teacher arrived. Seeing his student in danger, he immediately stepped forward, but his slight frame was no match for the burly men. Just as the situation grew critical, Chia quietly slipped to Tomomi's side and freed her bonds. Realizing she'd been discovered, Tomomi swiftly and decisively took down both attackers, but then the assailants drew weapons. Chia immediately stepped aside, buying precious time. Fortunately, at that critical moment, police sirens blared outside. Seeing their chance was lost, the criminals fled. Afterward, Chia slapped Tomomi for not coming to school, but Tomomi insisted that even if she had returned, nothing would have changed. Seeing this, Chia handed back the notebook and sincerely explained the misunderstanding. It wasn't because you're Ichigumi, nor because I used you for the performance. It's because only you could energize everyone and get the crowd going. Tears welled up in Tomomi's eyes. At that moment, she finally felt understood. The next day, Tomomi returned to class. She took responsibility for her actions and offered to work part-time to repay the 50,000 yen class fund she'd spent. With Tomomi back, the cultural festival proceeded smoothly as planned. Instead of a group chorus, they performed the original program they'd planned. Later, Riko and Keiko approached Chia to apologize. They admitted their earlier behavior had been childish. The misunderstanding was finally resolved, and they accepted Tomomi. Their friendship deepened significantly. This incident showed that even the school's top-tier bully wasn't without merit. Take, for example, two girls named Mamiko and Kumiko from the elite group. Both possessed exceptional athletic talent. In the upcoming long-distance relay race, it was expected they would outpace other schools to take first place. This would not only bring glory to their school but also potentially secure Kumiko a sports scholarship. To commemorate their friendship, Mamiko crafted a pair of stuffed keychains and gifted one to Kumiko. However, during lunch break, Mamiko went to buy bread and accidentally collided with Chia at a corner, causing the keychain to fall to the ground. Chia apologized and was about to leave when she stepped on the keychain. In panic, Mamiko shoved Chia away. Though she saved the friendship keychain, she twisted her ankle in the process. Mamiko's mother, a nationally renowned politician, rushed to the school. Her influence extended even to the education bureau. After berating Chia, she stormed off. Mamiko's injury left her unable to compete. Ultimately, a classmate named Akemi was chosen to replace her. Now, only Kumiko remained to fight alone. Soon, the relay race began. Mamiko could only silently pray for her victory. Kumiko, possessing some skill, quickly overtook the others. But when it was Akemi's turn to run, the situation took a turn. Sure enough, it wasn't Akemi who crossed the finish line first, but another school. Chia also suddenly received bad news. It turned out Akemi had collapsed mid-race from exhaustion. Everyone found it hard to believe that a victory that seemed certain had slipped away like this. Because of the loss, Kumiko also lost her eligibility for athletic scholarship admission. Thinking of this, she broke down again. Akemi came to apologize afterward, but a simple "I'm sorry" couldn't quell Kumiko's rage. Out of control, she grabbed her handbag and swung it wildly. The keychain fell to the floor. Kumiko didn't stop there. Her violent motion caused the wardrobe to tip over, crushing Akemi beneath it. Mamiko heard the commotion and rushed to investigate. Kumiko ignored her entirely and walked away. Even more shockingly, when Mamiko discovered Akemi trapped beneath the wardrobe, she showed no intention of helping. Only when Chia realized the door was blocked did she sense something was wrong. They finally summoned a teacher to rescue Akemi together. Meanwhile, Mamiko had retreated to a corner. Why she acted this way remains unknown. The next day, the school launched an immediate investigation. Akemi claimed she had simply tripped and fallen. Chia could clearly see she was lying. When she had rushed over the previous night, The room's lights had been off. Why wouldn't Akemi turn on the lights after entering such a dark room? Mamiko, standing nearby, countered that it was precisely because the lights weren't on that Akemi had tripped. But the more Chie thought about it, the more suspicious it seemed. After school, she confronted Mamiko and Kumiko again, presenting the keychain found at the scene. Mamiko couldn't explain the broken cord on it. Knowing she couldn't justify her actions, she walked to the stove, removed her own keychain, and ruthlessly tossed it into the flames. Then, she brought Akemi to teacher Akari to confess, stating Akemi's injury was entirely her doing. She admitted it was her fault they lost the race, and her frustration drove her to act. Unexpectedly, Akemi nodded in agreement beside her. But if the bullying came to light, Mamiko faced suspension. Only then did Mamiko reveal her true motive. She'd taken the blame for Kumiko to prevent the incident escalating. Her mother, a councilwoman, would certainly suppress the matter. But when teacher Akari later explained the situation to the school, he lied and took the blame upon himself, claiming it was a personal grudge between him and Akemi, unrelated to the long-distance relay club. Mamiko was utterly baffled by his actions. Knowing the school would surely discipline and dismiss him, Akari's motive was equally straightforward: to protect the long-distance relay club from being disbanded. Sure enough, the next day, Akari planned to resign. Upon hearing this, the students murmured among themselves, instantly branding Akari as a cruel teacher who bullied students. Later, the school's top bully even hurled objects at him from upstairs, angrily demanding he get out of the school. Only Mamiko knew Akari was being framed, but with things having come to this, she had no other choice. Chie felt there must be more to the story. That night, she returned to the locker room where the incident occurred. After careful observation, she immediately sensed something was off. The lights here had clearly been turned off. In this pitch-black space, it was impossible for Akari to have committed the crime. Moreover, he had arrived later to assist with the rescue. This provided him with a solid alibi. More crucially, the door had been blocked by a table from the inside. This meant someone else inside must have turned off the lights, and that person was the owner of this keychain. Chie's intelligence was truly terrifying. With matters having come to this, Mamiko could no longer hide the truth. She confessed that she was the mastermind behind it all. It turned out that after blocking the door, she had hidden behind the locker. Yet she didn't expose Kumiko. She even falsely claimed that teacher Akari's actions were also her doing. But now it was too late. Upon learning this was a teacher-student feud, the Board of Education took severe action, disbanding the school's long-distance relay club. Later, Akari, filled with guilt, sought everyone out to apologize. But Kumiko and Mamiko were nowhere to be seen. He then learned the two had already withdrawn from the club. Akari rushed to the classroom to confront them. After all, both he and Mamiko had started out wanting to protect the relay club. After laying their hearts bare, their anger dissipated. Yet Kumiko then made a cutting remark, insisting it was too late to do anything now that the club was disbanded. She angrily berated Akari's meddling as utterly idiotic. Mamiko hadn't protected the relay club, she'd protected me, because her mother, a councilwoman, could suppress the matter. Ultimately, Kumiko confessed she was the one who truly harmed Akemi. Chie, unable to hold back any longer, told her, "Mamiko wasn't trying to protect you." Just as Kumiko was about to retort, the silent Akemi spoke up. It turned out that after Kumiko had acted that night, both she and Mamiko had shared the same goal: to protect the long-distance relay club. To that end, they had conspired beforehand to conceal everything. So Mamiko wasn't simply taking the blame for Kumiko, but to safeguard the club they had cherished for 3 years. Yet, upon learning the truth, Kumiko remained unmoved and walked away. Fortunately, after persistent negotiations between the school and the education board, the long-distance relay club was successfully preserved, and teacher Akari was exonerated. But Kumiko's troubles weren't over. As the saying goes, with every gain comes a loss. The next day at school, Chie noticed something was off with her. Her once close friends from Team 1 now treated her with utter disregard. In the classroom, she became an isolated figure. Shortly after class began, Kumiko left her seat and approached the teacher's desk to announce her intention to transfer. Her reason? Someone had been secretly photographing her. Everyone reacted with disbelief. Kumiko then pulled a stack of photos from her chest. They clearly showed her in the changing room. Kumiko stated that someone had been stalking and photographing her frequently over the past month. She no longer wished to remain at this school. Moreover, She already knew who the culprit was. That person was Eiji from class 1. To prevent the matter from escalating, the teacher decided to conduct a mock trial using the youth court system. Kumiko served as the plaintiff, Eiji as the defendant, and Banri acted as the court recorder. With the teacher's gavel strike, the Class 3A youth court officially commenced. The final verdict would be decided by a class vote after both sides presented their arguments. Kumiko immediately accused Eiji of secretly photographing her repeatedly over the past month. She added that when she confronted him yesterday, an enraged Eiji had pushed her down the stairs. The bandage on her wrist served as evidence. However, this alone wasn't sufficient proof. She questioned her, "Why are you so certain it was Eiji?" Kumiko explained that although they were once close friends, Eiji had always disliked her, but these were merely her speculations. To uncover more details, the teacher proceeded directly to the locker room for inspection. Sure enough, he soon discovered a camera tucked away in a corner. Under everyone's gaze, the teacher opened the camera's files. Indeed, footage of covert filming appeared, yet beneath the list, a series of pet photos surfaced. The cat in the photos was none other than Eiji's pet, with the evidence seemingly irrefutable. Eiji immediately stood up to protest. "That is indeed my cat," he insisted, "but I didn't take the photos." Fortunately, observant Chia quickly raised a counterargument. She distinctly remembered decorative items placed atop the lockers not long ago. Therefore, it was impossible for a camera to have been hidden there. Moreover, the teacher had moved those items just 3 days prior. However, Kumiko claimed these photos had been there for a month. Clearly, she was deliberately lying. Exposed, Kumiko finally admitted she had placed the camera herself. But why would she stage this to frame Eiji? The other members of Team 1 provided the answer. Kumiko had always boasted about her family's immense wealth and claimed to live in a luxury apartment. Yet Eiji had recently spotted her home just an ordinary house. It suddenly dawned on them, Kumiko had been deceiving them all along. Their friendship shattered, and Kumiko was subsequently kicked out of Team 1. The 3 members of Team 1 explained that it all stemmed from Kumiko's excessive pride. Moreover, during yesterday's argument, she had deliberately thrown herself down. Hearing this, Kumiko flew into a rage and started yelling at them again. Seeing the situation escalate, the teacher had no choice but to call a temporary break. But before Kumiko could take 2 steps, members of the second-tier group deliberately knocked her down. True to form, her demotion to the 3rd tier brought back the resentment. Everyone remembered her past actions. When she went to the restroom, someone even secretly poured cold water on her. Yet her classmates remained unaware that Kumiko actually had her own unspoken struggles. At that moment, she resolved to fight back to the end. Returning to class, she immediately pointed the finger at the true villain, Yoichi, the male bully from the top tier. It turned out they had been a couple for 10 months. But recently, on her way home from school, Kumiko had spotted Yoichi walking closely with Eiji. As she approached, she saw them kissing passionately. She also discovered Yoichi texting Eiji to meet up over the weekend. Furious, she confronted him on the spot, yet Yoichi retorted that Kumiko had no right to snoop through his phone. The truth emerged. Today's drama stemmed from a tangled love triangle involving several students. But the ordeal wasn't over. Everyone had to vote on Yoichi's guilt. Desperate to save face, the bullies resorted to underhanded tactics. They threatened classmates with violence, forcing them to vote not guilty. The next day, when the teacher announced the results, it was 13 votes to 13. A tie meant the verdict was still undecided. But Class 3A had 27 students, meaning 1 vote was missing. That missing vote belonged to Banri, the recorder. His single vote held decisive power. The bullies even threatened him, but Banri cast his vote in 2 seconds flat. Yes, he voted Yoichi guilty. The final tally, 14 to 13. Kumiko won. The bullies were furious enough to explode on the spot, yet they had no idea what a terrifying presence this boy named Banri truly was. A figure even the entire first squad couldn't afford to provoke. But soon, everyone would find out. As days passed, tensions within the school quietly shifted. The hostility directed at the first squad began to turn toward their homeroom teacher, Mr. Koizumi. The school forum was flooded with scathing criticism directed at him. Ironically, these complaints weren't coming from the first squad, but from the second and third squads. They unanimously believed teacher Koizumi was deliberately favoring the first squad. For instance, when the first squad school bully disrupted class recently, teacher Koizumi dared only reprimand the first squad. Meanwhile, the third squad members, who merely submitted their homework late, received a stern scolding from teacher Koizumi. Yet when Team 1 approached, not even having written anything, Mr. Koizumi smiled and said it was fine. This was clearly unfair. What's more, he even mispronounced Team 3's names. This was undoubtedly disrespectful to the students. It was obvious Mr. Koizumi didn't take them seriously at all. Even the usually quiet Akemi strongly agreed with this. Because of this, Teams 2 and 3 decided to retaliate. After school, Akemi approached him with a look of urgency, saying she needed his help with an urgent matter. After questioning, Koizumi learned Akemi had been stalked by a creep on her way home from school lately. She begged him to pretend to be her boyfriend until the stalker gave up. Without much thought, Koizumi agreed, but as he walked Akemi home, she deliberately drew closer. Unaware, Koizumi was photographed by a mysterious figure with a camera nearby. The next day, someone photoshopped their heads together into a couple embracing. At first, Koizumi dismissed it as a classmate's prank, but scrolling further revealed photos of them outside a hotel. Now the evidence was undeniable. He had no explanation. As everyone stared at him with strange looks, teacher Koizumi suddenly realized he'd been set up. This scene inevitably reminded him of past traumatic experiences, yet no one in the class admitted to posting it. During lunch, Akemi had even prepared a special heart-shaped lunch for him, knowing he absolutely couldn't accept it. Mr. Koizumi promptly returned the bento to Akemi. He then suggested they keep their distance moving forward, warning that rumors spreading later would cause trouble. Unexpectedly, Akemi's expression changed drastically upon hearing this. Someone posted on a forum that they no longer saw meaning in continuing to live. Saki suspected it was Akemi. After lunch today, she'd been acting strangely. She vanished after school and didn't answer her phone. Koizumi recalled Akemi's words during lunch break. Concerned for her safety, Koizumi and Chie patrolled the school grounds that evening, but after hours of searching, they found nothing unusual. Just as Koizumi concluded it was merely a prank, the rest of the class arrived. Sure enough, one student had spotted Akemi upstairs. Fortunately, Akemi was unharmed. It turned out Koizumi's words at lunch had deeply hurt her. Suddenly, Akemi threw her arms around him. With things having come to this, Koizumi could only try to comfort her. The next morning, someone dug up a scandal from a year ago involving Koizumi. Attached was a video of him embracing Akemi the previous night. It turned out Koizumi had been expelled from his previous school a year ago precisely because of ambiguous relationships with students. He was ultimately forced to transfer here and become a homeroom teacher. Now, with history repeating itself, his teaching career would be completely ruined. Koizumi couldn't take it anymore. As soon as he returned to the classroom, he confronted the second and third year students, because they were the only ones at school last night, but they flatly denied it. Koizumi instantly flew into a rage, storming over to Akemi and demanding why she'd conspired with them to set him up. Saki then accused him of never wanting to be a homeroom teacher in the first place. She produced Koizumi's diary, which boldly declared his dream was to become an athlete. Other students joined in, condemning his complete lack of commitment to teaching. Koizumi roared, cursing the second and third year students, even hurling vile insults. Then, in front of everyone, he left the classroom in despair. It turned out Koizumi hated the second and third years so much because he had been framed before. Back then, a girl from the second year class confessed to him. When Koizumi refused, she climbed onto the rooftop and threatened to jump. Fearing for his life, he had no choice but to save her. But then she clung tightly to him. What he never expected was that the second and third tier students had been waiting with cameras, snapping photos of the two of them. Their motive? They didn't want a homeroom teacher. Later, Koizumi was transferred to this school. So for Koizumi, the second and third tier students were far more despicable than the first tier students. They dared not defy the powerful class 1 students, yet their paranoia was stronger than anyone's, scheming behind the scenes to frame teachers. Upon learning this, Chie hurried to comfort him, but Koizumi was now utterly disillusioned. Though he wanted to be homeroom teacher, he refused to be deceived by students anymore. Akemi also rushed over to apologize, but Koizumi ignored her and left the school immediately. Later, Chie learned the truth. Akemi's claim of being followed wasn't a lie, but the scheme to fake a relationship with Koizumi had been orchestrated by someone else. The mastermind's instructions were written on this note. Initially, Akemi had intended to teach the teacher a lesson, yet she never anticipated the mastermind's demands would escalate so drastically. Ultimately, she couldn't back down, leading to the current chaos. But who exactly was pulling the strings? The top-tier school bullies were also intrigued. They hadn't done anything recently, yet the class was now in such chaos. This was undoubtedly a challenge to their authority. They immediately grabbed chains and surrounded the entire class. No one was allowed to leave until the culprit was found. Soon after, they herded the whole class into the dark room. Faced with the male bully's interrogation, not a single student dared to confess. Then they escalated to physical coercion. Meanwhile, Rico promptly alerted the teacher and Chie. Learning of the students' crisis, the two rushed back to the school. Only then was the bully's farce finally halted. Yet Akemi had vanished without a trace. It turned out she'd been abducted by the stalker from that night. Chie also received her distress text, though Koizumi had some prior conflicts with her. As a teacher, how could he stand by while his student was in danger? Across the riverbank, the abductor was dragging Akemi along. Though Koizumi couldn't swim, he plunged into the water without hesitation to intervene. Fortunately, Shia arrived at the scene just then. She swiftly pulled a nearby rope, sending the abductor tumbling into the river. The police eventually arrived, and the abductor received his just punishment. Simultaneously, the misunderstanding between teacher Koizumi and his students dissolved through this crisis. The next day, he sincerely apologized and made his stance clear. Finally, he returned to Class 3A as their homeroom teacher as he wished. Yet one question remained unresolved. Who was the mastermind behind Akemi's actions? Even Chie hadn't figured it out. This mastermind knew every move within the school grounds intimately, and that mastermind was none other than the usually quiet Banri. Watching Chie repeatedly disrupt his plans, Banri now harbored murderous intent, planning to push her off the school building. Fortunately, Rico and the others arrived just in time to stop Banri's reckless actions. Though he failed this time, he began brewing an even greater conspiracy. Soon after, the class decided to hold a 3-day, 2-night camping trip. Yet this outing felt peculiar. Not only were phones strictly forbidden, but participants had to provide their own meals. Fish in the river, vegetables on the mountain if you wanted to eat. You had to cook your own rice. This survival camp also required a vote after every meal to eliminate one unnecessary person. The eliminated individual would be locked in the basement until the camp ended. Hearing this tense and thrilling adventure challenge, the school bullies instantly perked up. The first round went smoothly for everyone, thanks to Chie, the domestic expert. She meticulously guided everyone on how to catch fish. Under her leadership, everyone enjoyed a delicious lunch. After lunch came the first elimination vote, but to everyone's surprise, the first person eliminated was Chie. Unsurprisingly, this was all orchestrated by the school bullies. Though reluctant, Chie had no choice but to follow the rules. She eventually followed the teacher to the basement. Yet by evening, the entire class fell into an eerie silence. Without Chie's guidance, the food they prepared this time proved utterly inedible. The tense atmosphere of being dominated by the school bullies returned. But while Yoichi was heading to the bathroom, he accidentally stepped into a gap in the dilapidated basement floor and fell through. Chie was startled by his presence, but at least now she had someone to keep her company for a while. Seeing they were alone, Yoichi immediately distanced himself from the bullies, but Chie retorted, "Compared to Asahi, I think you're the real scoundrel." Asahi was indeed consistently arrogant and bold. "But you're different. You always hide behind Asahi. Trying so hard not to be disliked, it's just grandstanding." Yoichi fell deep in thought after hearing this. Meanwhile, the rest of the class began the second round of voting. Unexpectedly, Asahi was eliminated this time. It turned out the second and third tiers had united to finally get rid of the most hated person. But the next day brought even worse news. All the food and rice in the storage room had been thrown away. Now everyone could only survive on the remaining scraps until the rescue vehicle arrived tomorrow. To ease the hardship, the school bully proposed eliminating 5 people per round starting next time, and further reduced the food rations for eliminated students. The teacher accepted this proposal. Soon, the group sent to the basement grew steadily larger. The teacher then introduced a new round of competition, the revival match. Students who remained free could select 2 people they wished to revive from the eliminated groups. Those 2 would then face off in a duel, with the winner being revived. The rule was simple. Whoever filled their iron bucket with water first would win. Who received water depended entirely on the free choice of spectators outside the competition. This meant whoever had more supporters would win. Ultimately, the 2 chosen for revival were Chie and Asahi. Only 4 people chose to support Chie. The entire first-tier group sided with Asahi. Others, pressured by Asahi's threats, reluctantly joined his side. As the game began, Everyone raced to the riverbank to fetch water with all their might. Due to the disparity in numbers, Asahi held a clear advantage. Chie's team of 4 seemed vastly outmatched, yet the 4 remained unwaveringly determined to win for her despite the overwhelming odds. However, during the second water-fetching round, Kumiko switched her support to Chie, arriving later than expected. Asahi even lashed out at his friend in anger, though equally exhausted. Chie's group remained united and fiercely determined. Seeing her teammates stand up for her, Chie's eyes welled with tears. Even the classmates in the cage rallied together to cheer them on, recalling their past encounters and meeting their resolute gazes. Chie could no longer hold back her tears as they streamed down her face. Meanwhile, Asahi continued berating his own team. Suddenly, the girls from Team 1 poured their water onto Chie's side. As fellow women, they couldn't stand seeing another girl cry. In that moment, they understood who their true friends were. Seeing others still resting, the long-haired boy flew into a rage and kicked out. The next second, the others fought back, pinning him down for a lesson. When Yoichi arrived, instead of intervening, he fled in fear. He couldn't help but recall Chie's words. In that instant, Yoichi resolved to stop running away. He bravely stepped forward to intervene. The consequence? He too got a thorough beating. This marked the first time the second and third teams dared to stand up to the first team, though his face was covered in bruises. He had conquered his fears and defended his friend. At that moment, Yoichi felt nothing but relief. Through this ordeal, the long-haired boy finally saw clearly. As time ticked away, Chie's side achieved an improbable victory. After regaining her freedom, everyone successfully prepared a sumptuous meal under her leadership. This trip brought immense joy to everyone except Asahi, who wore a gloomy expression. When all boarded the bus home, only the solitary Asahi walked back. His sole focus now was revenge against Chie. It was Chie's arrival that had shaken his position. Sure enough, by the next morning, everyone's social hierarchy had shifted. The survival camp experience had sparked a rebellion. The second and third tiers dared to defy the top tier. The top tier students turned on each other. Now everyone stood on equal footing. Former third tier classmates could befriend the top tier. But suddenly, a mysterious letter shattered the class's tranquility. It contained revelations about Chie's identity. It read, "Chie is an undercover agent sent by the education minister. Its purpose, to conduct human experiments using high school students." Attached to the envelope were photographs, showing the two meeting in various settings. Faced with the accusations in this mysterious letter, Chie found herself utterly defenseless. Meanwhile, Asahi also received a mysterious map. Following the map's coordinates, he arrived at Chie's home and discovered a diary on the table. Asahi would use this diary to launch his true revenge. Just then, the class turned on a live broadcast. Sure enough, the minister on screen bore an uncanny resemblance to the person in the photos. The minister announced a radical educational reform to eradicate school bullying, abolishing the class system. His decision was based on a survey report from a certain high school class, which revealed that the school's hierarchical structure would collapse the moment students left their classrooms. Undoubtedly, the minister was referring to their class. Seeing this, everyone began suspecting that Chie had transferred here to deceive them into participating in human experiments. Asahi even poured a bucket of water over her head. Chie found herself isolated once more. She had indeed been arranged into the school by her former teacher, now the education minister, but she didn't know why he'd done it. Just as Chie was about to call her teacher for answers, a voice sounded behind her. It was Banri. He bluntly admitted he was the mastermind behind it all. He was the one who sent the letters exposing Chie's identity. He was the one who plastered mocking messages on the bathroom wall where Riko ate. He was the one who pushed Keiko down the stairs. He was the one who framed teacher Kazuhiro using a high school girl. He was the one who reported to the Ministry of Education demanding the abolition of the long-distance relay club. He was the one who secretly swapped the camping activity handbook in the teacher's drawer for a survival game manual. Banri did all this to abolish the school's meaningless military-style ranking system. To destroy this hierarchy, he even personally manipulated the class seating chart. He kept creating tragedies to control everyone's emotions, their joys and sorrows, so they'd realize how pointless and cruel the school rankings truly were. Now his goal was achieved. The campus hierarchy had collapsed. After revealing the truth to Chie, Banri was ready to end it all. But at the last moment, Chie stopped him. Yet the real drama was just beginning. Asahi now intended to expose to the entire class how Chie had deceived everyone. Seeing her friends still trusting her, Chie resolved to stop running away. She would answer all of Asahi's questions head-on to dispel everyone's doubts. The first question was why she had suddenly dropped out of high school 18 years ago. Chie explained it was because of a single thing my mother said. 18 years ago, when she witnessed her friend being bullied, she agonized over whether to intervene. It was her mother's words that gave her clarity. When her friend faced bullying again, Chie no longer shied away, she stepped in to stop it. But this act earned her the group's undying resentment. The next day, she became the target of their bullying. What shocked her most was that her friends not only turned a blind eye but began distancing themselves from her. The bullying intensified, eventually pressuring her into stealing. Her mother lost her job because of Chie's actions. Yet afterward, Chie felt no remorse. She blamed her mother entirely. If her mother hadn't made her protect her friend, none of this would have happened. She laid all the blame on her mother. She hid indoors, refusing to leave, and even began hurling insults at her mother. She only wished her mother would vanish from her life entirely. Yet those very words pushed her mother to the edge. Her mother began to believe that disappearing would ease her daughter's suffering. By the time Chie sensed something was wrong, it was already too late. Fortunately, timely medical intervention saved her mother's life. Sadly, severe head trauma had erased her memory. Even at her mother's deathbed, she never recalled who she was. For the past 18 years, Chie has been consumed by guilt. She could never forgive herself. She was the one who destroyed her mother. Fortunately, her former teacher never gave up on her. She stayed by her side, offering encouragement, and even helped Chie, who had dropped out, find a job. But Asahi found this explanation hard to believe. He thought Chie clearly harbored intense resentment toward the school, and that was why she returned to campus to seek revenge. To prove his point, Asahi produced Chie's diary from 3 years prior. Strangely, this 3-year-old diary contained entries detailing everything that had happened over the past 3 months. These entries were scenes of events that had already occurred. Asahi declared this was proof Chie had planned everything in advance. He even began inciting Riko beside him, claiming the note she saw while eating in the bathroom was posted by the old woman. He claimed she was also responsible for Keiko being pushed down the stairs. Gradually, all the classmates began to believe that Chie was the true mastermind behind all the strange incidents in the class. Banri had expected Chie to reveal his involvement, but unexpectedly, Chie chose silence to protect him. Then she picked up the diary from the ground and revealed the secret hidden in her heart. It turned out the true author of this diary was her mother, who had lost her memory. The diary described a Chie who was incredibly lively and cheerful. In its pages, she was a sunny girl who loved going to school. Reading this, Chie finally understood that even after losing her memory, her mother still cared deeply for her. As she sank into endless self-blame, her former teacher found her. He invited her to return to school to fulfill her mother's unfinished wish. That wish was for her to graduate high school with a smile. That's why Yuba could stand here today. Yet this couldn't clear her of suspicion as the education minister's spy. To uncover the truth, Asahi privately summoned Chie to the rooftop. He pressed her for the identity of the mastermind behind her actions. It turned out the sharp-witted Asahi had long suspected another figure orchestrating events behind Chie. The school ranking website existed before she arrived, but even under pressure, Chie refused to reveal Banri's name. Just as Asahi was at a loss, Banri approached and confessed he was the one behind it. Yet, upon learning the truth, Asahi began to get carried away. But he still underestimated Banri. Immediately after, Banri forced Asahi and Chie back to the classroom. He intended to reveal the entire truth there. It turned out Banri harbored an unspeakable memory. When he first entered middle school, he was bullied without cause by upperclassmen. Fortunately, his older sister saved him, but afterward, his sister became the new target of bullying. Just like Chie, confronted with daily oppression, she eventually reached her limit and chose to end it all. Banri knew it was all the fault of the school rankings. Was being in the top tier so great? Did being in the third tier mean you had no value at all? So he swore to avenge his sister, to take revenge on the school, to erase this worthless school ranking system from the world. Chie fought for her mother, while he fought for his sister. In Banri's heart, Chie felt more like a comrade. She was now the person he was determined to protect. But today, Asahi had gone too far. He had humiliated Chie so viciously. Banri would make this former top-tier bully understand. With the school rankings gone, he'd vanish too. Terrified, Asahi spun in place and started running, but it was already too late. Unexpectedly, Chia suddenly stepped in front of him. Everyone watched in disbelief. Chia did this because she wanted Bonri to understand. Everyone only gets one youth. She didn't want him to repeat her mistakes and fail to graduate high school. In the end, Chia was carried away on a stretcher. Fortunately, after emergency treatment, she was fine. Bonri, meanwhile, was sentenced to labor reform for his mistake. Upon learning of this, the education minister felt deeply remorseful, blaming himself for causing Chia to be misunderstood by her classmates. It turned out the undercover agent he had actually sent into the school wasn't Chia, but the school's teacher, Miyu. Teacher Miyu reported everything happening at the school to the education minister. That's why the education minister proposed reforms. After learning the truth, the students finally realized they had misunderstood Chia. Meanwhile, Asahi, who had been saved, was also filled with regret. But the saddest part was that after being discharged from the hospital, Chia chose to drop out of school. She selected a quiet island to start a peaceful life. But everything was far from over. After enduring this farce of the school ranking system, the Minister of Education, after careful consideration, decided to abolish the class system at their school. This meant the dissolution of their former class collective. Moreover, everyone shared a common wish to graduate together with Chia. To this end, they spontaneously gathered at the school office to protest, demanding the class system not be abolished. Seeing the school leadership unwilling to agree, Class 3A even barricaded the entire teaching building. Asahi took this opportunity to sincerely apologize to classmates he had bullied in the past. Everyone painted graffiti on each other's faces as a gesture of reconciliation. Ultimately, the arrival of the police brought this farce to an end. Yet everyone still shared one common wish, to find Chia. They created hand-drawn posters and appeared on a TV program, hoping Chia would see them and return to graduate together. Not only that, they searched for her through every conceivable means. Soon, the day arrived when the school announced the abolition of the class system. Everyone felt profoundly despondent. This meant they could never graduate alongside Chia. Just as all hope seemed lost, a familiar figure entered the hall the very next moment. Seeing Chia return filled everyone with joy. But Chia still had one unfinished wish. She pleaded with the authorities to reverse the class abolition decision. Ultimately, through everyone's persistent efforts, the Minister of Education relented. Bonri also returned to campus after completing his labor reform. Later, the students compiled a high school diary dedicated to Chia, recording every moment they shared together. Finally, the entire class embarked on their graduation journey. Chia fulfilled her mother's dying wish, and all the classmates were about to begin their own new lives.